We're going to talk a little bit about one of the biggest questions I get when I go do an estimate, I guess, if you will, or people coming over looking at the furnaces is, what's the big difference between the traditional style, the classic, and the new, latest and greatest, the high efficiency, the classic edge? And that ends up being a huge talking point explaining the differences between them. So we're going to cover a few of those here to maybe give you a little advanced informational type thing on the both of them. The classic is a furnace that's been around since 1984. That's when central boiler first started. It's a really great design in the world of traditional wood burning. It's which is the reason I've been selling them for as long as I have. They're spray foam insulated, water jacket all the way around. This is kind of a cutaway of a firebox on one. And a lot of surface area. Square firebox versus round, over 30% more surface area. Besides that, we're adding a ripple top for more surface area yet, and a great way of trapping the heat in the firebox with a rear exiting chimney and the heat log baffle that traps the heat in. You'll see a lot of brands of furnaces have a chimney that'll come straight out of the top. Naturally, heat rises, and it's never really the best way to trap the heat in a firebox. So the classic furnace has always been a great, very forgiving furnace. What's happened in the prior years, even as far as I'd say about 12 years ago, central boiler started producing something much more efficient. It was originally called the E-Classic, and as of recent here, a couple years ago, it got redesigned just a little bit, and they call it the Classic Edge. The Classic Edge doesn't have a traditional up-roaring fire. It's actually a downdraft. So what happens is your wood still gets loaded in the firebox, just like on the Classic, but what happens is when the combustion air rushes in, ignites the wood, everything is pushed down into a lower, which is what we call the reaction chamber. So essentially it's an upside down fire. Your wood is on top, your fire is down below, and we're creating a huge blowtorch effect down underneath. And we're forcing all of them unburnt gases. When you see smoke coming out of a chimney, a lot of that is unburnt fuel. So by trapping it underneath, we're able to burn that up more completely. When everything's burnt up, it escapes out through some heat exchanger tubes through the back of the furnace, which is where most of the transfer takes place into the water. And then what's left is out the chimney. By the time it gets out of the chimney, there's really not much left. You might see a little bit of smoke on startup, but for the most part, it's hard to tell that a Classic Edge is even burning at all. Because of that process, wood consumption is usually the biggest thing that people take into consideration. The furnaces are a little bit more money up front than what the Classics were, but they're burning as much as even a half less wood than what the Classics were. I use 40% as a safe number. If you use that, you're not going to be disappointed. Comparing to other brands, some people even say as high as 60% less wood. So the wood savings is very significant. The emissions are significant. If you have close neighbors, it's just awesome because smoke isn't really an issue anymore. So it comes down to deciding between wood consumption, a little bit of extra cost, but not bad, and the emissions coming out of it. So that just gives you a brief rundown on the two of them to give you a little food for thought before possibly we get together and do a little more talking about it.